With highways in the Carolinas already chock-a-block, while those still preparing to flee pile sandbags and board up every window they can find, Americans brace for Florence.
You know, there's nothing you can do. You're not going to stop that water. You're not going to stop the wind. If you don't get off, you're going to be a casualty.
Today, a sobering message from the governor of North Carolina.
It is an extremely dangerous, life-threatening, historic hurricane.
And there will be flooding in the inland areas as well. So
Donald Trump criticized for a slow response to Hurricane Maria last year in Puerto Rico, was briefed on Florence today in the Oval Office.
We are sparing no expense. We are totally prepared. We're ready. We're as ready as anybody's ever been.
Billed as a once-in-a-generation storm, when Florence makes landfall later this week, it's expected to pack winds of more than 200 kilometers an hour.
This storm is not a glancing blow. This storm's going to be a direct hit.
Jeff Biard with the U.S. Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, today warned of looming devastation.
So this is not going to be a storm that we recover from in days. It will take us a good amount of time to do the full recovery.
With fierce winds en route, a storm surge expected to reach nearly 4 meters and seriously heavy rain in a part of the country that rarely gets hit this hard. The real fear is that some will think they can tough it out and stay put. The message on that today:
take it seriously. Heed the evacuation orders.
In other words, you can't tough this one out, so don't even think about it. Paul Hunter, CBC News, Washington.
The hurricane hunters from the U.S. government have been flying through the storm since Saturday. Here's Flight Director Paul Flaherty.
We were watching it develop, and, you just have that kind of sick feeling in your gut. We went through this with Irma in Florida last year, and, of course, the last couple of years, everyone up the East Coast has been concerned about one storm or another, and so it doesn't change whether it's heading for our house or, in this case, somewhere around North Carolina to Virginia, South Carolina. We all know people up there, and it just kind of hits you in the gut when you see this thing strengthening and know that the forecast is calling for it to come in as such a strong storm.
CBC meteorologist Johanna Wagstaff has been tracking the storm for us. And Joe, what is it that makes Florence so dangerous?
Well, the strength of this storm is unusual. It's very rare to get a Category 4 landfalling storm. Since records began in the mid-1800s, we've only had a couple dozen Category 4 storms make landfall. So the winds will be incredibly dangerous in a small radius around the eye of the storm when it makes landfall. But there are a couple of other factors that are adding up to make this exceptionally dangerous. The coastline of the Carolinas is quite shallow, but quite wide. So the storm surge ahead of the eye of the storm will force all of that water to pile up, and it looks like it'll line up with high tide. And finally, this blocking pattern over the East Coast right now will mean once Florence makes landfall, it'll be forced to sit and spin. Very similar setup to Hurricane Harvey last year in Texas, Ian.
And Harvey, just one of the monster storms we've seen over the last couple of years. And a lot of people, Johanna, wondering about the relationship between climate change and these storms that we're seeing.
Well, climate change doesn't mean more hurricanes or more intense hurricanes, but it does mean that the impacts are getting greater. And we know that for sure, that climate change is leading to greater hurricane impacts. Higher water levels means higher storm surge. Warmer waters means storms can maintain their strength longer, and the atmosphere can hold more water. And finally, these blocking patterns that we're seeing more and more of are leading to these storms stalling out and just dumping enormous amounts of rain, which is what, unfortunately, we will see with Florence.
Thanks, Johanna.
You're welcome.